low, suspenseful tone. Imagine this. You've been promised a raise. Not just a tiny raise, a real one. A life-changing one. But month after month, your boss looks you dead in the eye, smiles and says, soon. Meanwhile, you find out every other employee already got theirs. What do? Most people would grit their teeth and wait. But me. I made sure he'd never forget the weekend I ruined his life. If you've ever been disrespected by a boss, underpaid, or flat out lied to, then you're going to love this story. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you crave more justice served hot. And let's dive into one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll ever hear. Back in the early 2000s, I was working for a telecom company in Eastern Canada. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable work. Then we merged with a Western Canadian telecom company. And with that came change, some good, some bad. Corporate, probably nervous about unions spreading, announced raises. Big ones. Up to $3.50 an hour for service reps like me. For context, back then that was huge. That was groceries, gas, maybe even a little breathing room. But here's the catch. These raises weren't automatic. They had to be administered by the area managers. And our area manager, let's just say, he wasn't the kind of guy who inspired trust. He was slick, always boasting about his Muskoka cottage, his toys, his lifestyle. The kind of guy who'd pat you on the back with one hand while tightening the leash with the other. So when January rolled around, then February, and I still hadn't seen that raise, I asked him about it. His answer every single time. Soon. Always with that smug little half smile. Like he was doing me a favor just by acknowledging me. By March, I was suspicious. By April, I was angry. I asked him 5-6 times. Always soon. Always brushing me off. Meanwhile, my gut told me something wasn't right. So I made a few calls. Quiet ones. Other stores in different areas. Their raises had already come through. February. Early March. My co-workers and I. Still waiting. That's when it clicked. He wasn't just lazy. He was stalling. And why? Because the longer he delayed our raises, the better his quarterly numbers looked. Delaying meant padding his bonus check, at our expense. Do you know what that feels like? To realize your boss has been pocketing your money by withholding what's rightfully yours. Felt like betrayal, like theft. And every time I pictured him sipping wine at that Muskoka cottage, bought with our stolen raises, my blood boiled hotter. I couldn't let this slide. But I also knew I couldn't just explode in his face. Guys like him thrived on intimidation. So I started writing. 4 pages. Detail. Dates, times, every conversation where I'd asked him. Every excuse he'd given. Every way he was screwing not just me but everyone under his management. It wasn't just a complaint. It was evidence. It was a case. And I wasn't sending it to him. No. I was saving it for the right moment. And that moment came in May. The Friday before the long weekend. That morning he came in, strutting like usual. I asked him again about the raise, pretending to play dumb. And he gave me the same line. Soon. Then, like clockwork, he started bragging. About how he was heading to his Muskoka cottage that afternoon. How he'd be there by 3, sipping drinks by the lake. That's when I knew. It was go time. I waited. Not noon. Not 2. 4 o'clock sharp. Right when he was settling into his cozy weekend retreat, miles away from the office. I opened my email. Addressed it directly to the CEO and president. Attached my 4-page masterpiece. And then, click. I didn't just want him to get in trouble. I wanted to ruin his weekend. I wanted him to feel the same helpless frustration he'd been making us feel for months. Saturday morning. I walked into work at 7 a.m., fully expecting nothing until at least Monday. But then there he was, my area manager, back from Muskoka, looking like he hadn't slept a wink. He pulled me outside, his face a mask of forced calm, his voice tight. And then the words came. Everyone in your area will be getting their raises. Retroactive to January 1st. And your store. Maximum increase for every employee. I nearly laughed. I couldn't believe it. Not only had I gotten us the raise, but months of back pay too. He had to drive back from his precious cottage to apologize to me. And the look in his eyes, pure venom. He wanted me gone, buried, erased. But he couldn't touch me. Not now. He'd been caught. And he knew it. He even had the nerve to say, "You ruined my weekend. You could have just spoken to me first." Smiled. "I'd be glad to forward you the email," I said, "where I documented every single time I did speak to you. And every single time you blew me off." Then I twisted the knife. "You were stealing from me. From all of us. So if you lost your bonus and your weekend sucked, well, that feels fair." I ended the meeting on my terms. Told him there was nothing left to discuss. And as I walked away, I delivered the nastiest goodbye I could muster. "Have a great drive back to Muskoka. I hear it's quite scenic this time of year." He stood there fuming while I walked back inside. And for the first time in months I felt powerful. I wasn't worried about retaliation. I already knew I'd be leaving in 6 to 8 months to start my real career. But in the meantime, I was a hero. Calls came in from other stores. Employees thanking me. People who'd been just as frustrated, just as powerless, but hadn't known how to fight back. And the best part, nobody told me to keep quiet. So I didn't. I told the story over and over, making sure everyone knew exactly why they'd finally gotten their raises. The manager had tried to steal from us. In the end, he lost his bonus, his pride, and his perfect weekend. And I walked away not just with my raise, but with the satisfaction of knowing justice had been served. The CEO forced him to crawl back from his cottage. Everyone got raises retroactively. And I got to look him dead in the eyes while telling him he'd been caught. The man who thought he could play games with our livelihoods. He was humiliated. And that moment, that perfect sharp goodbye as he drove back to Muskoka with his tail between his legs, was pure, unfiltered revenge. Sometimes, revenge isn't about grand gestures or burning it all down. Sometimes it's about being patient, waiting, and then hitting your enemy exactly where it hurts most, right when they least expect it. So, what do you think? Did this manager get what he deserved? And have you ever seen a boss get a taste of their own medicine? Drop your story in the comments, smash that like button if this gave you chills, and subscribe for more tales of sweet, sweet justice. Until next time.